Hello, everyone. I'd like to give you a warm welcome to FTNCI's monthly Hangout. I'm Cody Leibold, and the theme today is a vision for cultural change. We will discuss the themes of our upcoming book, Redeeming the West, which we plan to release on Reformation Day this year, October 31st, 2025. Our hope is that we will be able to use the book to provoke discussions with pastors, with Christian writers, creators, leaders around the country in the coming years. Today, I want you to see what the book is going to be and how the book is going to fit into the overall mission that we are on For the New Christian Intellectual. The video will go an hour and 15 minutes today. It will be a short presentation and then mostly time to have questions and open conversation, town hall style. I want you to know what FTNCI's vision is for changing the culture. We have a plan. The transformation that I want to create for you today is to go from being generally aware of what we're doing at FTNCI, the kind of content that we normally produce, to actually having more of a detailed understanding of the strategy behind the project. I want you to see what our plan is. I want you to decide if you think it's a plausible, workable plan, if you think it might work. So in previous videos, we've talked about the Christian call to be salt and light in the world. One of the passages that brings up this idea of being salt is Luke 14. Let me share with you from this passage what Jesus teaches about the need to be effective in the world and to love the work of God's kingdom more than other things that can be a distraction to us sometimes. So this is a matter of vision, priorities, and even strategy. Luke 14, 27 through 35. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, "This man began to build and was not able to finish." Or what king, going out to encounter another king in a war, will not sit down first and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So, therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. Salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is of no use, either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, I have selected there from two different paragraphs that are back to back, and if you hear those preached, you'll usually hear them preached separately. I think there is something informative about noticing how they're stacked together. So I will call you to think in terms of being salt, being the light of the world yourself, or being a miniature light. And that's what we're trying to do at FTNCI. So here's what our plan is at FTNCI. We are going to create a movement of people who will change the world and will give it the renewal that it needs. We take seriously this call to be a light in the world. There will be a next generation of leading Christian voices who are going to advocate for biblical Christianity, sound doctrine, and for Americanism, including liberty, individual rights. They are going to be people who will reform our country's laws and institutions in all areas, top to bottom. They will be an excellent generation of leaders. There will be the lawmakers, the elected officials, judges, the news reporters, the influencers, the authors, the pastors, the teachers, the parents who will shape the world. Now, the goal is we want to see a future with better laws. We want to see better schools, better churches, better families. But to get there, we're going to need better men and better women. We need to be people who are able to see the path to victory and then commit to doing the work. Just as Jesus was saying there, counting the cost, deciding whether or not you want to be a warrior in his kingdom. So today, our country is facing challenges like it never has before, a trend towards socialism, totalitarianism, radical leftism, violence, all around. I do not want to leave my children a world in which I never spoke out and never took a stand for the truth, for the importance of individual rights, freedom of speech, these kinds of things, freedom of religion. Before the world turns into that, we have a chance to speak up. And we might be the last generation who has that ability because we could lose freedom of speech. We don't want to leave a world to our kids where they can't speak up because we chose not to. So if you're like me, you're asking, what can we do about this trend toward tyranny, toward dictatorship in our country? And what can we do to make sure that Christians are not deceived by it, buying into it, supporting it, which ends up, first of all, affecting the political situation if we vote stupidly, but also what's going to happen if Christians actually start believing in these evil critical race theory ideas or Marxist ideas, this theology of envy and hatred and bitterness. That poisons the church as well. It could have implications on people's souls. So it's clear that we cannot reason with this leftist movement, this poison that is coming into our society, our schools, our churches. We cannot reason with Democrats, for the most part. You certainly cannot reason with the radical left, as we've seen in this last month. Now, there is an answer. What do you do when somebody wants to initiate force against you and you cannot reason with them? Well, they have taken themselves out of the realm of being a human being, and they've turned themselves into the realm of acting like a brute beast. So what would you do with a brute beast? That's what we must do to those who want to harm us. Now, I'm not saying that we need to go to war. In fact, it is completely foolish to seek war or to speak of war in a positive term. But rather, what we need to do is, because we still have a functioning government, even though there are problems with our government, it still functions. So we should be seeking power within our government. Within Christianity, there is a movement called pietism, a similar movement called quietism. You can look them up. There's this idea of pacifism, and we reject all of those. The truth is, if you read the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, or if you read what Jesus says about taking a sword in Luke, or if you read any other passages in Scripture that talk about your responsibility to the people around you, you do not always have the responsibility to turn the other cheek. Jesus did not turn his cheek when he was slapped in front of the people and in front of the priests, and neither did Paul. You can find both of those in Scripture. So turning the other cheek is not a philosophy of government. Turning the other cheek is not a philosophy of how to lead your family. It is a philosophy about how to win people's hearts when your children's lives are not at stake. Turning the other cheek is a problem in our society. It's a problem in how churches are instructing people to think about moral issues. There is a place for it, and there is a place where you should not do it. If you want to imitate Jesus and Paul, you've got to accept that. So we need to, as Christians, be seeking not only to influence people by using reason, but also we need to seek to influence our society by taking power. I said it. We need to take power. Now, there's this myth that only the person who doesn't want power is worthy to have it. That's crazy talk. That's just a myth that they put in movies and that a pastor thought, oh, that sounds kind of Christian. I'm going to teach that now. That's not what the Bible says. Remember your wives, remember your children, and fight. If you've read the book of Nehemiah, they were building the walls of Jerusalem while holding their swords in the other hands. So you got the sword and the trowel concept. There is a reason for that. It's because we've been given a responsibility and a stewardship. And so what that means as Christians is we must seek power. We must seek to put men of character and wisdom into positions of leadership in the schools, in the seminaries, in the churches, in the media, and in political office. Now, I do not advocate for Christian nationalism, which would be to make a law that says you're not allowed to teach false doctrine or something like that. What I'm advocating is that we be civic-minded Christians who know what justice is and who care about defending the rights of our fellow citizens. We want to defend the rights of other Americans. We want to defend the good form of constitutional government that we have. So the idea here is a vision of Christians equipping other Christians that are younger to rise up to be the generation that will be the leaders, that will correct the course of our nation. And we have to be willing to seek political power. If you believe that you understand justice better than the neighbors and the peers around you, and you believe that there are people in positions like judges that are letting criminals onto the streets after like 16 crimes, and they go and they murder more people, if you see that happening, if you understand what justice is, and that doesn't make you angry, if that doesn't make you want to say, no, you should be out of power and somebody like me should be in power, well, then there's a problem. It's unrighteous not to be angry about the injustice. And so that's what we need to see, is that power is part of the answer. It's part of what it means to be a responsible Christian, is to be willing to look for ways that you can make the world a better place, even if it means practical things like electoral politics. Also, even if it means practical things like getting a group of people together like we have right now and talking to them about the truth. We spur on each other to good deeds and to love. Don't forget about the part about the good deeds. So the goal is that we are not going to be Christian nationalists. That's not my vision at all, but that we are civic minded. So the institutions of cultural influence and power need to be recaptured from political offices, media, schools, even sadly, many churches need to be recaptured by people that aren't fans of Tim Keller. So in the long run, we cannot have good laws and a good culture unless we have good churches. We believe that as Christians. So this implies that we are going to need good families, good leaders in the families, especially good husbands who are going to step up and take responsibility. Think about it. Who donates to the pastors? They have power. Are they willing to use it? Are they willing to vote with their feet when the pastor is not doing the thing that is worth supporting with 10% of his income? Men need to become excellent leaders and culture warriors. But this implies that they have to be men of character. They have to be men of sound understanding. These are the kinds of men that need to be put into these positions of influence. And that's going to take time, but it can be done. Now, a major obstacle is that most Christians are not well mobilized to be able to do this. We don't even think in terms of doing this for the most part. And why is that? Well, a lot of Christian men are struggling with sin. A lot of Christian men are struggling with patterns of addiction to sin. They're not on the right side of personal discipline and holiness. They don't even follow the Lord each day in their own personal conduct. And yet here I am saying, let's be culture warriors. No, I don't want those people to be culture warriors. I want them to repent. But your job, if you're already on the right side of discipline, is to call your brothers to repent and then say, there is a path here. You need to repent. And then after that, you need to become a warrior. And then after that, you need to do what I'm doing. Call others to repent and to become warriors. And we are going to spread like a fire across the country. So there are many people that are currently influential within Christianity and within conservative politics that are wolves in sheep's clothing. People of poor character, they don't belong there. We need to replace them. But even those that have good intentions, even those that are theologically good, among them, it's rare to find leaders that are impervious to ideological manipulation. Propaganda is all around us, and if you want to be honest, you're probably vulnerable to it also. I'm probably vulnerable to it also. There is manipulation everywhere. But some of the main manipulations that we have identified over the last decade or so are this pathological altruism trend, or the idea that you can accept socialism as something that Christians could support. It's okay that your pastor's a socialist, these kinds of things. These manipulations are so dangerous that they have to be confronted urgently, because otherwise we are going to lose souls. We are going to lose churches. We're going to lose our nation. And there's not a clear path to coming back from that if the United States were to cease to become what it is today. So, to make the cultural progress that is needed for the sake of our posterity, for the sake of the well-being of the church and our responsibility to our Lord, we are going to do what we can to identify leaders of tomorrow and to equip them for influence. That's why it matters. So we're training people in sound theology, sound philosophy, best practices for communication, online communication strategies, community building, fundraising. We're helping people learn what it means to be a mentor and why being a mentor matters. We're training people to be better husbands, better wives, better fathers, better mothers. We're training people to live on the right side of personal holiness. That's what we do at FTNCI. We're training people to build their own enterprises, to build their own audiences, to get their books published and seen and bought. We are working to change society in each of these areas. And I have a little bit of understanding about how to do some of these things, but we need 100 more Cody Leibolts. One that can focus on, this is how you get really good at marketing. This is how you get really good at fundraising. This is how you get really good at presenting and speaking, or being a teacher, or being a pastor. And I'm asking you to see a little bit of what I'm doing and try to do something like it. I want to equip 1,000 people to be the new Christian intellectuals. These would be people that are committed to sound philosophy and theology, and that are committed to influencing others through any of these channels like mentoring, writing, debate, intellectual advocacy. I want you to think about what it means to be a nonprofit organization. A nonprofit it's a way to create cultural change. And the way it works is basically there's people that work in conventional businesses that make good money, but they spend their time making the good money. So they don't have time to be talking to people all day about true ideas and spreading and challenging and advocating intellectually. So they partner with somebody who is going to be a full-time fundraiser and advocate of an intellectual position. And that forms a partnership. So we've got the for-profit people and we've got the not-for-profit people or the nonprofit people, but they form a partnership together. So this is a way for donors who are productive, who have careers in fields other than intellectual advocacy, to partner with writers, with communicators, and help them reach the world and change the world. So if you believe that the world needs to be changed, I challenge you to consider this model. First, I challenge you to consider, do you want to be somebody who runs a nonprofit? Not everybody has to, but ask yourself that question. Should you actually be doing this? A nonprofit that's devoted to some cause that is on your heart. Should you be running a nonprofit? Or if you don't want to, then I have to ask you, could you contribute to another one? Could you volunteer for another one? Could you help create content? Could you donate money to another one? And I'm not even talking just about FTNCI. There's many organizations that do good work, as we're all well aware this month in particular. So you don't have to be a front of stage person, but maybe you should be. But if you're not a front of stage person, then ask yourself, is God calling you to be a behind the stage person? And this is the framework that James Lindsay advocates when people say, well, what can anybody do? How can we change the world? He says, well, you either need to do this or this. You need to either lead or you need to help somebody who's leading. And that's not difficult. It's just you talk to people about what's true, and then you say, hey, could you please donate to it? That's the work of intellectual advocacy, speaking out, reaching an audience with information that's designed to transform their minds and their hearts. This is a model that works, and this is how societies are renewed. If you think about it, this is what a church is. But the church is one example, one instance of that kind of model. So I want you to ask yourself, what are you leading, or what are you supporting? Do we need Christians leading our society? Do we need this? If your answer is yes, then ask yourself, are you going to do it? Or are you going to help somebody else who's going to do it? That is how each of us can play a part in cultural renewal. So that's the broad concept of how we do it. Now, you might be asking, okay, well, what does FTNCI specifically have to do with this mission? What makes FTNCI important in this overall battle? So our mission to create cultural renewal starts with training 1,000 new Christian intellectuals. We want 1,000 people who can do the following. They can affirm the New Athens statement, which is just 1,000 words. It just says, this is what sound philosophy is for Christians. And then if they can affirm that statement, they also need to be willing to get our help in becoming an intellectual advocate in some way, becoming either an encourager, a community organizer, a communicator, something that contributes to the mission of spreading the overall vision that is in that statement, the New Athens statement. And so we call it the New Athens certification. If somebody affirms the statement and is willing to get our help in being an advocate, then we will give them the certification. Now, a month ago, the total list of people that had the New Athens certification was about 3. And this month, we have 7 total. And probably 2 more that I'm going to talk to you about getting it soon. So if you're like, hey, why hasn't Cody talked to me? Well, I'm going to. But we have a pipeline of people that are somewhat likely to be interested in getting the certification in the coming months. And this is how we plan to grow a movement. We have a plan. It's the certification process. So the plan is in essence, we are standing for something, telling people about it, saying, hey, could you join us in taking a stand also? Could you join us? Could you imitate us while holding that same vision? And then the group grows and the influence spreads to more people. So everything that you see us doing on social media, the group chats, I know I message you too much, the phone calls, the email newsletters, the videos, all of this is an example of this pattern of I'm going to talk about the truth and I'm going to ask you to join me. So the point is not that we get huge social media reach or YouTube reach, or the point is not the vanity metrics. The point is that we find people who get us, and then we connect to those people and we help them understand not only that they get us, but we get them. We understand what they stand for. We believe in them. And so that generates a real interest around this vision, and it generates a unity so that people actually find out about this New Athens statement. They find out about our book coming out soon. And that's how we move the project forward. I don't think I can change the world, just to tell you the truth. I don't think I can do it. I think that it's going to take 1,000 people. And I think that a significant number of people here watching this are likely to get this New Athens certification at some point, and they're likely to help us with our mission in some way. Now, I don't know what all the steps will be after we have 1,000 people. That's for those 1,000 people to think about. But I know what the foundation is. The foundation is to find those people and to connect them to each other. So that is how we are going to renew a culture. So why am I telling you all this today in particular? What I want for you today is I want you to see how our upcoming book, Redeeming the West, A Christian Defense of Reason and Individualism, is going to play a part in this mission that I've just been describing to you. So the book is going to explain the basic ideas that we're contending for. It's going to define them, make them clear. You can give them to a pastor and say, hey, I agree with this. You should check this out and see if this challenges your thinking, because I want to support people that believe this. Cody Leibold is on a mission to fix the pastors, just in case you didn't know that. We need to fix the pastors because they're broken. So this is a tool that I'm giving you that you can use to do that. And if they can't support it at some point, you need to cut bait. I mean, you're going to have to figure it out, what you support and what you want to see reproducing in the world. Because I don't think a pastor that significantly rejects this book ought to be a pastor. That's my position. That's my contention. So this book is going to define sound philosophy for Christians. It's a school of thought, the New Athens School. I don't call it like it's a philosophy per se, but it's a school of thought, right? It's certainly not a new religious group because it's just pulling different ideas that have been found within mainstream Protestant theology for hundreds of years. It's just putting them together and saying, these are the contentions that matter in our cultural moment. So every movement has to have an answer to 3 questions. It has to answer, what do you stand for and why? And how do you stand for it? So the book answers the first 2. It answers the what and the why. It shows what ideological foundation is necessary in this cultural moment to produce reform. So it makes the case for why these particular themes matter, and the themes are reason, and rational self-interest, and individualism, and individual rights, the themes that you always hear me championing. It reminds me of this Boromir meme. You know the Boromir meme where he says one does not simply enter Mordor, right? Or simply walk into it. I saw a version of it that says one does not simply play trumpet quietly. And I was like, oh, that's how I feel about life. One does not simply play the trumpet quietly. And if you play the trumpet, you understand the pain. So this book is going to be that trumpet. This book is going to make the case for why these particular themes, these 4 themes, matter. Now, the book does not answer the how question, but what we're talking about today is the how. Because this book is going to bring people to the point of asking that question. Okay, I get it. How? What do we do? And that's where the New Athens certification comes in. The certification creates a pathway for people to follow as they become active in defending these ideas and in spreading them. So I want you to see we not only have a mission, we don't just have a book, we have a plan. And it's a plan that I want you to participate in. So at FTNCI, we are not aiming to create an audience of spectators who cheer for us and say, yay, you guys are winning. Keep it up. We are aiming to create a team, to create a community. We want to be the ones who are watching you and saying to you, you are winning. That's how we create a movement, not just some personal vanity platform. So I've defined a plan here for how we're going to make that happen. I hope you are following. I hope it makes sense. Now, what I'm asking for you to do today is to get to know our ideas by reading the book. When it comes out, I want you to get the book. And we're going to be sending out review copies. So if you'd like to buy the book, you can. If you want to get a review copy, just contact me and say, could I get one? And I'll buy it for you. I have the budget. It's not a big deal. And I can get it to you fast by PDF or slower after the release date, because it's a little hard to do it the way it works with the website, this printing the books. I basically have to give it to you after the release date. But I want you, once you get that book, to ask yourself, does this match my values? Is this essentially correct? Can I stand behind this? Could I put my name next to it? And is not only is it correct, but is it meeting a need that matters and that really needs to be front and center in the conversations that are taking place in churches today? So if the answer to those questions is actually yes, well, then we can talk together. We can get on the phone, you and me, just one on one, and we can talk about how you can get into the game. If your answer is maybe, then I want to help answer your questions because I don't think that it's necessarily going to be a slam dunk book. I think that I'm going to have to defend some of the things that I did in there and maybe even make some edits over time. There will be a second version of the book. But what I want is eventually over time to turn your maybe into either a clear yes, yes, right now I do want to help you with this, or no, right now this is not the time that I can do that. Either way, I'm helping you with clarity. And that's progress for me because then I know where to put my efforts and I need to move on to the next group of people and ask them, can you be the ones that are going to be the new intellectuals? I'll do that. I mean, I'm not going to leave you behind, but I'm certainly going to move forward. So, what I want you to do for the rest of our time together is I want you to start asking several questions, and I'm going to give you some prompts to try to generate discussion around what I've just said today about FTNCI's mission and FTNCI's plan. And in a bit, I will take questions about like the availability of the book or the content of the book. But first, I would like to have a discussion just about the overall mission perspective that I've just shared here. How is FTNCI going to use the book? That's the topic of discussion. And my first question to prompt this would be to ask you about the New Athens statement. So I'm going to make sure I can see everybody. And I just want to ask you, show of hands if you're on camera, who is familiar already with the New Athens statement? Okay, we've got people that are familiar with it. Okay, if you haven't read it yet, go to christianintellectual.com/New Athens, and there's a dash, so it's New-Athens. It's 1,000 words. It's a quick read, and it just explains what we mean when we say things like reason or individualism. Okay, now show of hands, who has contributed ideas and feedback to the statement when we were creating it? Show of hands, anybody? Okay, there's a few others as well that are not here. Jennifer Ray and of course Ryan Graber and Jacob Brunton and Pastor Jake McDonald and I think like 5 others that their names aren't coming to mind. Alex Hume probably did. And so I want you to know that we didn't just create this and then say, ta-da, it was a process. So, okay, show of hands, who already knows that they can affirm the statement? Okay, glad to see that. And now, next question is I want to bring some people on audio or on video. Are you tracking with me about the idea of using a statement like this to serve as a rallying point for an intellectual movement? And what are your reactions? What is your perspective? I'll give you about 20 seconds just to think about it, and then I'll start bringing people on audio. Okay, who's the first brave person that would want to share their perspective? Go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks, Cody. I love the idea, and I've been talking to you about it a lot. And over the years, I've grown more and more willing and courageous, I think, to speak about the ideas that are in that statement and anything that's related to it, just about the things that our culture needs to hear, the importance, first and foremost, of becoming a Christian, getting on the right side of discipline, having a spiritual influence on those around you, and then trying to be an agent of change in the world. And last night I had a dream. And I think that I had this dream just because I've been thinking so much about Charlie Kirk, his legacy, in ways that I overlooked, frankly, when he was living. And in this dream, I walked up to a group of people that were all discussing in agreement with each other about things that I thought were wrong. And I walked up and I thought, let me talk to them. And I had a conversation with them and I said, I tried to emulate what I had seen, from Charlie and said, "Hey, what do you think? Tell me what you think first, and let me tell you why I think that you can agree with something that I'm saying and why I'm going to try to win you over." And even if the person I'm talking to, doesn't listen, other people, and in this dream there was a crowd of people listening in this conversation. And I think that tells me, as I think about what's going on in my soul, that I do have a desire to speak and try to get people to see the importance of speaking themselves. And that starts by just not being afraid anymore of someone disagreeing with you, with someone having a counter argument. Now, I've told you before, Cody, that sometimes when I've thought about opening up a discussion with someone, whether it's a family member about talking about Christ, whether it's someone who is a professing believer who does not see any danger in the left, the American left wing movement, or certain elements on the right, I suppose. Um, I hesitate sometimes, and I find in myself that same impulse that Moses had when he said, "Well, Lord, I'm not good at speaking. I have, I'm not, I don't have a clever tongue. I'm not quick-witted." And God said, "Who made man's mouth?" You know, uh, so I want to be more like Isaiah and say, "Here I am, send me." And so these kind of conversations are good because they form the planning, the strategy, and all that we have to do once we have this plan in place is just believe. So I pray every day, God, help me to believe in you. I've already trusted in Christ. Help me believe in you as I go out and try to do these things that we're talking about today.
Thank you for sharing that, Andrew. That's really well said. And this idea of faith and belief in God, belief that He brings the increase, we realize that we are not able to change the world, but we are able to pray and we are commanded to pray. We're able to speak and we're commanded to speak. Andrew, do you have any follow-up about the other thoughts that are just kind of swirling around?
I do have some questions that I'd love to bring up at some point, but those are more about how details of how to make the statement effective and how to make the book effective in everyday conversations. So if anyone else has anything to say, then I'll hand it to them.
Excellent. Then we'll make sure to come back to you. Yeah, as we're sharing thoughts together, I want you guys to realize that we're going into this in light of what the Bible actually says, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in abundance of counselors, there is safety. You guys are my counselors. Ecclesiastes, two are better than one. They have a good reward for their toil. And it talks about how a threefold cord is not quickly broken. I am seeing you as my most important group of advisors because you're the people that care enough to be here to hear what I have to say. Who else would like to share? Yeah, go ahead, Nathan.
When I think of the New Athens statement, the word that comes to mind is force multiplier. You have a community of 1,000. The idea is right to have a community of 1,000 high character people, people who affirm these values. I mean, and the statement gets really detailed, right down to the foundation of what each person's philosophy is. You know, how you view reality and how you view scripture and things like that. You look at how um, churches have statements of beliefs, and sometimes those are written in such a way as to be vague enough that you could have a quite a diverse set of beliefs within that very congregation, um, because they're phrased in such a way as to allow for some flexibility, you know, unity in the essentials. And I see this statement as getting a little bit more specific, maybe a lot more specific, in such a way as to really set up the kind of environment where if someone has that New Athens certification, I can look at them and I can say, I basically know the foundation of the way you think. And I know that we align on our values. There's a process in getting to know people. And sometimes you can meet a person and initially align on quite a number of things and then find out something ugly later on, and it just changes your entire perspective about that person. And it's uh it's a matter of trust. Um, the New Athens certification, I think, creates a massive amount of trust within that community. And I think of it as a force multiplier. like imagine if one person of that 1,000 has a book to sell, and they're trying to create cultural change using that book, and it aligns with the New Athens Statement and the goals of FTNCI. Well, that's already 999 people that are potential customers and people who with influence who can promote that book, and get it to people who need to hear the message in it. So I see it as a force multiplier. I see it as something that like you said, it's people building up each other within that community.
That's a really good insight. I appreciate you saying that. So the statement's a force multiplier. It makes it clear who we disagree with. It makes it so that there's trust about intellectual foundations. It makes it so that we have a potential to serve each other, to be customers of each other, which is a service in both directions. The person who buys the book for their kid is being served by you, the author, and vice versa for the payment you receive. So I wanted to highlight this idea that you said about how much it creates trust for the foundations. Suppose that somebody were to come to me and say, you know what, Cody, I love everything I see you're on social media, you're posting all this stuff. It's so great. And they say, I think we have a lot in common. I'm a real fan of Kant and a real fan of Chesterton. And I'm like, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not making this up. This happens to me. And so the reason for the statement like this is it makes it clear you're not getting the certification if you agree with Van Til's ideological system of presuppositionalism. You're not getting this statement if you believe socialism is good, or if you believe collectivism is good as long as it's like collectivism for our nation, not for the whole globe or something. Because there's this movement within the people pushing back against globalism are saying, yeah, collectivism is good, but it's like nationalism, collectivism. Um, we couldn't have that within the certified group of people. I will say there are people that we can have. So, for instance, the book. I want you guys to know the book literally argues that taxation in its current form is theft. But it also has a footnote that says, by the way, we're not saying that we're going to pick a fight with you if you can't agree. The New Athens Statement does not take a position on taxation. So you don't have to agree with me about my views on taxation in order to be certified. But we do argue that in its current form, the coercive regime of taxation that we have is is not it's not consistent with the way that things were in the time of the judges, the way that Moses set things up. And it looks currently our system looks a lot more like the time of the kings, which God explicitly condemned, especially in 1 Samuel chapter 8. So I just want you to know that's just one example of a case where the book is going to be very clear about what Cody and Jacob and Ryan think. And the New Athens Statement it's a more generalized statement. And so it's not going to include people that have an issue with one or two paragraphs in the book. I think it's important to think through that and to be honest with each other. Like I'm willing to be a co-belligerent, an ally, a friend with a lot of people. And there's layers to that. It's not like there's only two kinds of people in the world. And so we have to think in terms of who is in and why are they in and how are they in with what we're doing. And it's okay. It's okay that there's lots of different viewpoints out there. There's nothing in the New Athens Statement that explicitly demands that somebody affirm Calvinist soteriology. These are things that when we were making the statement, we had to think through is we're trying to create a movement. Who's in and how are they in, right? So any other follow-up questions, either or comments? Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I did have this. I wanted to see if anyone had any ideas on this. As you talk about those layers, they're like concentric circles. Obviously, the center would be someone who wrote the book or someone who agrees with basically everything in it. And the next would be the New Athens Statement. And then beyond that, you could maybe have co-belligerents. I think there's another circle there that's important too. And those are the people who you said you're not trying to make, but I think it wouldn't be a disadvantage to have them. And those are spectators who are like, hey, I like to see you winning. I actually don't affirm the New Athens Statement totally, but I think that society would be better if you were in, the position of influence and not someone else. Those are probably the people that you're most likely to come across in your day-to-day life. You're probably not going to find a lot of people. I mean, I've made some friends at my new job that really want to see Charlie Kirk's legacy advance. But this is not someone who's going to sign the New Athens Statement for a number of reasons. But someone who could probably be happy if we are getting more of an influence in the world and succeeding at that. So when we go through life and we're open to talking to people wherever we may be, I think that we should be willing to talk about this stuff. I think it's important. I think the left has done a good job strategically, not directionally, at saying, hey, you need to be bringing up Israel and Palestine in regular conversations with your waiter. You need to be bringing up Black Lives Matter. And I think that they have a point. I think you can get annoying with it and you have to be wise. But if you're talking about the New Athens Statement or redeeming the West, do you guys have any ideas? How would you phrase this? How would you introduce this? Hey, I'm reading this book. It's about how Christians can influence the world. Okay, well that could be broad because that could include like Radical by David Platt. You know, hey, I have this idea. I'm reading this book. I'd like you to think about it. It's about how, you know, if you go straight to it's going to integrate some ideas of Ayn Rand with some things from Christianity that might people who might ultimately be open to it might say, she was an atheist though, you know, it may not have read her much. Any ideas about how would you is there an elevator pitch for normies essentially is what I'm getting at.
So I'll try to answer the question, but other people may have good insights on this. And then we'll go over to Lucas in just a moment as well, because he's raised his hand. So the book does not champion Ayn Rand. The book, if you've read Ayn Rand, you'll see that there is some consonance between her emphasis on reason and individualism and ours. But we didn't use Ayn Rand as an authority in the forming of the book. We didn't say, this is who we got this from, because we actually think that it's consistent with Christian history, and we think that Rand got it from a lot of Christian thinkers in the past as well. So we didn't see the need to do that. We just acknowledged that she's been influential on us personally, but the arguments are from the Bible and from common sense, not from some previous author. Now, the question that you'd asked about, like, how do you bring up a conversation? There's any number of ways. Typically, when you bring up something that you want somebody else to look at or to care about, it should be framed in terms of things you already know that they care about. So people don't take action unless there's something that they want that they don't have, or something that they have that they don't want. They want to get rid of it. So how do you move people to action? Well, a very simple way is you have to find out, first of all, what's on their mind. A very easy way to do that with anybody, whether they are a Christian or not, is to say, I'd love to pray for you. What are some of the things you'd like me to pray for? Or, how have you been lately? What are some of the things you're doing? What are you working on? What are your goals? You have a conversation about people's intentions, which leads to, I can pray for you for that, which leads to, hey, this guy cares about me. Every time he sees me, he asks me how my father is doing and my father's health, or my husband or my wife, or whatever it may be. And so now there's a personal connection. Once you've established a personal connection, you've showed that they matter to you, and automatically and organically, you begin to matter on some level to them. And once you matter to them, then you're in a position where you can say, have you ever thought about this or that topic? What are your thoughts about it? Why do you think that? And then you're in a position to say, well, okay, that's very interesting, and I might check out that author. I might think about that argument. Let me tell you this book that I
Is Cody frozen for anyone else?
Yeah.
Since this is being recorded, I'm going to jump in and say, hey, how about Lucas? You share what you were going to say. Is it related to my question or is it something separate?
It's about something you said in your last comment
Okay.
about you had people who you meet day to day that might agree with us and join us in the fight, but may not sign the statement. And got me thinking about basically it's like church. I mean, you have the door to the eldership and the door to the membership. I mean, it's not the same side of the door. I mean, some people will join us in battle. They are co-belligerents, as we said, and they will fight with us, but they probably won't have the same degree of agreement with everything that we propose. But I guess the statement is meant exactly for the type of people who will be closer, who will be leaders, who will be the people guiding the movement, the project, and everything. So I just thought about that parallel. I mean, it's not essential that every single person would agree with the statement. It's important that the closer and most influential people agree with it and guide the way.
That's true. And that goes back to the idea of the concentric circles that, like even in a church, there are going to be people who have various degrees of buy-in. Yeah, that's a good point,
Yeah,
Lucas.
yeah.
Cody, are you back with us?
Yes, I was speaking for a little while until I realized, and then my program crashed and opened again. I don't know what happened. So yeah, did I answer your question, Andrew? Was there more that you wanted to hear about my answer there, or should we move on?
I think to summarize, if I got you loud and clear, it's you find out what they care about, you find out what motivates them, and find out where can your ideas and your beliefs and your values meet a need for them. And I think that's exactly right. And it's easier to think of it in those terms than it is to say, how do I package this really complex and important theological idea to a normie?
Yeah, if you have a like a prepackaged script that you're using, people know it. It sounds weird. Whereas what you want to do is think more like Napoleon. Napoleon planned his battles one step at a time, and then he thought, well, if this happens, then what'll I do next if this happens? And you've sort of got your talking points for any number of contingencies. But I would suggest one idea is you don't ask somebody to marry you on the first date. Very important, unless your name's Cody Leibold. Then you're allowed to. But because I did, but not exactly the first date. Maybe it was the second. But the general strategy is that you make incremental requests of people, and it's in line with what they already know and trust. So it would be, we're having a conversation about this topic. Now we know that we are able to do that. Maybe next time we'll have another conversation about it, and it grows. Now, but Andrew, to answer your general question about, like, how could you use the book or the statement? The one of the ways that you would do it is you would talk about the ideas that are in it before you talk about the book or the statement. Another is that you just need to be the kind of person who's having these conversations with people. And if you were to consider a marketing strategy where there's like a broad reach net and then it pushes some people in a certain direction, the broad reach is making personal connections, talking about spiritual things, talking about things of justice and judgment and righteousness. And then as people find out that you're the kind of person that is worth listening to, you at that point can say, this is something that you should check out. They have to have context first to know who you are and to take you a little seriously, because it's, nobody wants to know some stranger's manifesto. Other questions related to that, or any other questions in general? Here's a prompt that I will put out there just in case anybody's. Oh, wait, Lucas, I didn't hear because I was out of the video. Did you have a chance to share what you had just written down, that you opened your browser tab, you read it, and you said, where do I sign?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was meant to read it, but I didn't have the time. But I read it during the conversation when you asked this. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it's the foundation. I mean, right? It's the basic principles that we all must have in order to, as you guys said, trust each other as capable and honest people. So I mean, I
Cody,
agree
I
with
think
it. Yeah.
this is a sign that you need to start having an altar call at the end of your presentations. Who wants to sign? Come up to the front. We're gonna sing Just As I Am.
So, Lucas, the other thing you said that really stood out to me, and it makes me happy to hear, is indeed there's no other form of thinking than to, quote, think for oneself, and you're giving it the high five. And I love hearing that, because it's like, yeah, okay, so we're on the same page about the need for some of these crucial things. We're going to have differences of opinion about many of the implications, or about how we evaluate other people that are famous. We're going to have differences of opinion about this and that, but we're committed. And just like Nathan had said, that gives us so much trust. Let me just share with you a couple other prompts and see if anybody has input. and we'll go approximately another 20 minutes in the video today. So when I talk about intellectual advocacy, and then when I challenge you to consider whether you could be an intellectual advocate, what are some dimensions of your life where you think that you could actually do something? What comes to mind? I'll let you think about that. Love to hear your thoughts. What comes to mind when you think about intellectual advocacy in your life?
I'll say that my a friend at my new job was talking to me, and we were both asking each other about ways that we could get involved and trying to have more of an impact outside of just our our work. We're lawyers, we advocate for clients, we go to court, we review contracts and things like that. And like you said, that's the for-profit side. And obviously, one thing that we can all do is give. We can give to FTNCI, we can give to Turning Point USA or something like that, or what Michael Fallon's doing, organizations like that. But and then there's another side, which is like you said, we need to be having these conversations with people in our lives that we see that have a need and that they show that they're interested. Maybe they have an American flag on their desk, and you say, "I love that. I love that you have that. Why is that important to you?" I'm patriotic. Well, yeah, tell me more. Why is your country important to you? But I think that it goes even beyond that. I think that everyone can contribute, even in a video like this. It's amazing to me to see that people who have been in a group chat with us, Cody, for a long time will come on and they'll start to share and we'll realize how much we have in common. So for me specifically, I'm going to keep doing those things. I also want to do another a book study. Some of us were part of the leadership book study earlier this year. Why is that relevant to what we're talking about with the New Athens Statement and the book? Well, because we need to be good leaders. We have to be able to lead others and use our influence. We're not revolutionaries in the tactical sense. We want to be disciplined. We are not guerrilla warriors that are going to go out and wreak havoc. We need to be disciplined. And so that's why that book study was relevant. So more things like that. I want to be involved in more things like that. I want to maybe write a review of the book, maybe write an article. I have an interesting point of leverage because I have a lot of contacts in the conservative legal journal world. I know several of the editors in chief of some prominent conservative legal journals. And I know people who are saying a lot of things we're saying, but maybe without the deeper philosophical undergirding. So it'd be easy for me to write an article. In fact, I had someone who doesn't even know anything about you, Cody, write an article to me about why pastors should be making the case for either voting for the right candidate or especially avoiding voting for a specific candidate from the pulpit. Very well reasoned, and he had a whole outline. These are connections that I can use just due to my position, my connections from law school and other projects that I've done. So I can use that. I can take the message of the book and the New Athens Statement into a direction that other people can't. And Nathan's going to have outlets. Lucas is going to have outlets. Tabitha's going to have outlets. Greg, and like we all have things that none of the other ones of us have. So we need to be thinking about what we have and where we have lanes of influence that others don't.
Yeah, the group together is able to accomplish something that the individuals alone would not be able to accomplish. And like I can say, Andrew, just from knowing you really well for the last like 4 years, you've made my life better. You've made my thoughts sharper. You've made my communication better and given me ideas about what to talk about. And I know that us working together over time has also been a benefit to you. And this is the kind of thing where we make strong people. We make strong people by getting together and by figuring out what do I see that you don't, and vice versa. Nathan, I just wanted to highlight you because you had said that you were going on a walk and that was a intellectual advocacy in my mind. Do you remember when you described going on a walk?
Are you talking about when I took my American flag and
Exactly.
yes, yeah, I grabbed my American flag and decided to go on my usual walk along the highway, which was there's a path along the highway. I'm not just walking on the highway, but just carrying the flag all the way. And I wanted to do that as I did it first on the day of Charlie Kirk's funeral, and I did it to go out there and stand in solidarity with other true patriots and other Americans. Um, I think the American flag is beautiful, both aesthetically and for what it stands for. And it's just one way to stand up and unify true patriots and differentiate from people who are enemies of this country. And so I got like um at least 10 people honking their horns and shouting USA and things like that. It was pretty fun.
It's interesting because you somehow what you do is you change people's perception about what other people think. You make them realize they're not alone. And a lot of reality comes from our perceptions, because our perceptions end up shaping the future reality as we make choices. And so you change people's perceptions about whether or not they're alone. You give them the invitation to speak up because they saw you speaking up, and it does have the potential to be viral in its effect. So let's just go ahead in the topics that I had listed. Lucas had said that he'd be interested to ask questions about the specific, like the details about the book. Let's bring you on, Lucas. What do you have to say about that?
Uh, I mean, I've been seeing the posts you've made on Twitter about the book, the excerpts, and I've read the table of contents of the book, and I wanted you to correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it's a book punching in all directions. I mean, it doesn't seem like you're responding to one particular book or one particular author on the progressive Christian side. I mean, it seems like you're actually trying to demolish everything on the other side, in the sense that it would disqualify books of Tim Keller on the Platt or everything else. I mean, that seems like what you're doing with the book, but I obviously haven't read it. So is that it? I mean, is that would you say that's the scope of the book? Or no, it's like a limited book to this topic, and it's just our view on this topic, just like you have other books on this topic as well. I mean, how would you describe it?
So the book is essentially a manifesto of our program intellectually. This is what we think is the foundational philosophy that Christians ought to have. And essentially, you know how there's a difference between theological orthodoxy versus being a heretic? I think there's such thing as being a philosophical heretic. And this book is drawing a line in the sand and saying, if you can't get with me on these issues, you're a philosophical heretic. And that's going to poison your life. That's going to poison your teaching if you're a church. So the philosophical heresies would be blind faith or arbitrary duty, those kinds of things. And we think that these are the key issues that are shaping our society today. The fundamental battleground for ideas is going to come down to, do we advocate reason? Do we advocate individualism and individual rights? So that's our program. It's an intellectual program. It's not specifically designed to take down one or another expert or something like that. Rather, it's this is what I stand for, and this is what I'm going to spend my whole life standing for. This is an overview and an introduction to it. You could go deeper into some of the topics, but we don't have to. Now, if you're not sure what the scope of it is, you could get a preview by looking at our episode 1. Our episode 1 gives you an entire sweep of those issues in our podcast. And episodes 1 through 9 give a little bit of a deeper look. And the way that we produced this book is we took a transcript of episodes 1 through 9, and then we made it better. And then we added additional chapters on government and the theory of government that were not covered in those 9 episodes. But essentially, it's explaining why we take a stand for reason and for Christian egoism and for Christian individualism and capitalism. And then not just explaining why we do those, but also why we think that those issues matter within the grand scheme of things for our society. And it'll make it clear to the reader if there's some kind of false teaching in churches, how you could correct that false teaching. So for me, it's not primarily like an instrument of creating political change in the country. It's an instrument of creating moral change, developing the moral reasoning skills of Christians so that they will not fall into heresy and so that they will not fall into promoting evil. It's for the sake of their souls. I think that people need to understand these ideas for the sake of their own souls. Even if they never spoke about them, they still need to understand them. And additionally, it is the foundation for changing the world. Did you have any follow-up, Lucas? Okay, let's invite anybody else. I know it's been a little while, and there's a few people that haven't got a chance to come on. If you would like to come on audio or on camera, you're welcome to. We have about another 10 minutes in our time together. I want to share with you a couple of thoughts just in the closing time that we have about how this book connects to you. So in the dedication, this is what we wrote: to our friends who treasure knowledge and wisdom above all else. To our supporters and prayer warriors. You guys today here, you're the core of that, as well as there's probably 10 or 20 other people that are in the core. You're the ones that treasure wisdom, knowledge, truth. So that's at the beginning. In our acknowledgments, I think I want to share with you about some of the people that have helped make the book possible. What we wrote in the acknowledgments was, thank you, Pastor Jake McDonald. Thank you, G.S. Muse, Isaac Adams, and Andrew Boone for your support and friendship in providing essential input on the book. Other people that are here as well, thank you for your input on the New Athens Statement. And we especially thank our wives for believing in us as we put so much time into the project. This has been a season of heavy work for all of the authors of the book. I wanted to share with you some ideas from the foreword. This is from Pastor Ryan Graber. He says, when the Apostle Paul wrote that the church was the pillar and support of truth, he set a high standard. If a reasonable man were to consider this verse and then to soberly examine the state of the church, he could be excused for trepidatiously asking, is the truth okay? The fact is, many churches have failed to fulfill this weighty biblical calling. Over the last decade, many nationally known Christian leaders in America have been flat-footed in addressing impending cultural trends. They failed to understand ideological manipulation and had been unwilling to lead courageously when the church was threatened. And then he goes in and explains how he got to know us and how we have a shared vision. And then he writes, in the intellectual morass the church currently finds itself, many faithful Christians are asking, how did we get here? We see Christian leaders telling their flocks to agree to disagree on purported political side issues that are in fact so radically evil as to eventually lead to societal destruction. Meanwhile, even the best churches fail to offer a plan for active resistance against social evils. This book attacks the ideological underpinnings that created our present moment and its debates. It provides the philosophical ammunition needed for the war in which we find ourselves. So that's the purpose of this. And we offer it to the church because we want you to know that you're not losing your minds. You're not the only ones who see what's happening in the world. And just like Nathan was able to do when he was walking with the flag, we want you to realize that other people see it too, and that we are going to be able to change the world when we all start getting to know each other and working together. Andrew, I see you raising your hand. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about the cover of the book and why you chose that cover.
Sure. Well, we thought about lots of different cover ideas, including The Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, and including some motifs from ancient Greece, like the idea of a fluted pillar, which stands for philosophy and tradition and law and society, because ancient Greece is in many ways the foundation for our society. If you think about Western society, Western civilization, it is something that has come from several different intellectual traditions. The tradition of Athens and the tradition of Jerusalem. And for 2,000 years, people have been asking, what does Athens have to do with Jerusalem? And we think that this book is going to give the answer to that. And so when we think about the overall, like the mood of what needs to happen for the book cover, what emotion needs to convey. It needs to convey a sense of greatness, of the human soul, a renaissance. And so we thought, well, are there any Renaissance figures? And then we thought, well, there's the statue of David. So that's a close-up of David's face, the Michelangelo statue that's, I don't know, maybe 30 feet tall, and probably one of the most famous icons of Western civilization. And so if our book is about redeeming the West, Western civilization, we need to make it clear that we're connected to that history. And this David is an exemplar of the Renaissance, which is a time when Christian thinkers rediscovered the ancient Greek thinkers and the heritage from Greece and from Rome. And so there's a sense of heroism. There's a sense of being willing to stand against evil, as David is a symbol of a man standing alone against a giant. And it's also a symbol of beauty. So when you think of truth and of righteousness and of justice and of beauty, these things that we care for as philosophically minded people, David exemplifies all of those. And we want to follow in the footsteps of Michelangelo. We want to put out there for the world a vision of a greater mankind, and it starts with greater individual men.
Very good. Thank you.
There was a question from James in the comments. He says, is there going to be an option for pre-order? Currently, I don't have it set up, but I will most likely be setting up something, and I'll make sure everybody's aware of it. Something like maybe an Indiegogo that you could pre-order, and there will be a bonus attached to it as well. So you get the same deal, but you get extra perks. Nathan, did you raise your hand? Go ahead.
I just want to mention something that I put in the comments, and it's that I went out on my flag walk because I saw other people doing it. I saw Isaac Adams going out on his flag walk, and that was really cool. I thought that was inspiring. I even ran across a guy in a town locally here as I was coming back from work. I ran across a guy who was carrying a flag and also carrying a cross. And I stopped and talked to him and asked him what message he was trying to convey to people. And I posted about that. But when I went out, a good friend of mine saw me and he messaged me later and was like, hey, that is so cool. I love to see that you're not capitulating. I love to see that you're out. And we made plans to go out again tomorrow, he and I, with the flag and walking together. So I'm really looking forward to that. I also am a part of a local rucking group. And for those of you who aren't military, rucking is when you put weight on your back and you go for a walk. And the guy who leads it invited me to bring my flag on the next ruck so that we could all ruck as a group with the flag. So I'm excited to see how that's spreading and that it's had sort of like a ripple effect.
That is exactly what we're talking about. A similar idea came from Pastor Jake McDonald. He said, you want to create a ripple effect for people with your book. So he said, what you need to do is take the cover of your book, which is in this case the David picture, and make it your social media avatar, your picture. And then you need to just go one-on-one and talk to a whole bunch of people and say, hey, could you please do this for the next 2 months? I want to ask you to make sure that you put it there. And then when you buy the book, you're going to read it, and then you're going to tell people about it. But that avatar, if you look on social media and you see the avatar everywhere, it's going to have an effect. People are going to say, what is that? And it creates a desire because they feel like they're missing on something and they don't know what it's all about. So if you want to direct people to the book and to be excited about it, you can link them over to the pinned post on my Twitter and on my Facebook, my personal profile, or the Facebook page for the New Christian Intellectual. And the pinned post is going to say, hey, here's this picture. Please put it on your social media bio as well. Please link people to our project. Yeah, go ahead, Lucas.
I have a question from Brazil. I mean, will give a translation to the book, and if there's any intention of that, I volunteer to do the translation or review it or something. I mean, I would do it for sure. I'm probably going to do it anyway to share it with people that I know who don't speak English.
That is outstanding. Yeah, you would be my number one choice. So let's talk about that. Well, so I shared with you the vision that FTNCI has and what we're hoping to do with the book today and how you could be involved. I've tried to challenge you to think about yourself as an intellectual advocate or as somebody who helps intellectual advocates. I don't know whether God is calling you to be part of what I'm doing in my work. Perhaps he's calling you to do something entirely independent. But whenever it is, I suggest seek Him. And especially in this cultural moment when people's hearts are hurting and we realize that there are people that want to kill us. What are you going to do to make sure that your children have a better future? Remember your wives, remember your sons and daughters, and fight. That's what I'm calling you to do. Fight the intellectual battle today so that we will have a tomorrow. I'm going to challenge you. Become an expert in seeing a better future. Find out what other people aspire to do. Find out how you can help them, because you cannot just create a future for yourself by yourself. You create it in conjunction with other people, which means you need to know what they aspire for. What does a bigger and better tomorrow look like for somebody else? How can you help push them in that direction? And when you push them in that direction, you create greatness in them and in yourself. And that's what you need to do if you're going to be salt and light in the world. Thank you for joining us for this today. It's been a real pleasure. God bless.